I declare open this hearing of the Public Accounts and Estimates Committee. I ask that mobile telephones please be turned to silent. I begin by acknowledging the traditional Aboriginal owners of the land on which we are meeting, the lands of the Wurundjeri people. We pay our respects to them, their elders past, present and emerging, as well as elders from other communities who may be here with us today. On behalf of the Parliament, the committee is conducting this inquiry into the 2025-26 budget estimates. The committee's aim is to scrutinise public administration and finance to improve outcomes for the Victorian community.
The line item funding for training, higher education and workforce development on that page has not increased. So I ask, in holding that funding at the same rate as previous budgets, when you're taking into account to consider inflation, indexation, increases in enrolments, Minister, are we asking TAFEs to do more with less?
No. What we have done is that we have provided $16 billion since 2014 in investing in the vocational education and training system. We've also had growth funding that has been provided for to the portfolio as itemised in the budget papers. That growth funding is the very thing that I've just finished talking about, which is the Housing Centre of Construction Excellence. We're also piloting the use of AI to support the recognition of prior learning. We've got building foundation skills for improved education participation, and we're also strengthening the TAFE and adult education workforce, as well as making sure that we've got $121 million for student inclusion and wellbeing programs, training delivery in priority markets, and of course investing in our high quality workforce. We've also of course provided for $11.1 million for the TAFE asset strategy, and that's going to deliver upgrades at the Gordon, Southwest TAFE, Fed Uni in Ballarat and Mount Helen. So there are a number of things that are taking place, and of course the other thing is that enrolments are well and truly on track, and I think you'll find some more information on the website in relation to tracking a number of other data points.
Great. I'm just going to hone in on a particular certification if I can. Can I ask how many institutions are currently offering the Cert 3 in beekeeping in Victoria?
Here we go.
We need more. I believe.
I hope you're prepared on that.
You can come back
I
to me
take that on
that.
notice, but
Yep,
I
yep.
know BKI was. I'm not sure if they still are, but I will check.
If that's coming on notice, can I also ask how many Victorians have completed a Cert 3 in beekeeping since 2020?
Yep.
That's all right?
Yep. Easy.
Thank you. Minister, are you aware of Sweet Justice, who offer a accredited beekeeping qualification to adults and young people in the criminal justice system? Are you aware of this program?
I believe I did receive some correspondence from them at some stage.
You've earmarked $296 million in this budget for effective water management and supply. Now, there are some concerns in the community about potable water being used for non-domestic or typical industrial or commercial purposes. Particularly, I'd like to ask about use of potable water by data centres in their day-to-day operations. Can I ask, what's the total annual volume of water currently under application by data centres in Greater Melbourne for potable water?
Just in terms of the information we've got currently at the moment, we've got 46 data centres in operation in Melbourne at the moment, and existing data centres tend to have a water usage that we'd estimate at around 50 litres per second. What we know is with additional data centres coming in the future that we need to be well planned in being ahead of that, because they do tend to be more water intensive unless they have a closed loop system or they're looking at zero water operations. So at this stage, there would be 46 data centres in operation that are typically using around 50 litres per second. 50 litres per second.
Can I query something with you, Minister? I'd like your assessment. To your awareness, Are you aware that there's currently no government policy preventing data centres from using drinking water for server cooling or requiring them to connect to recycled water?
What I'm aware of is that it is the government's view that all large water users need to prioritise access to manufactured water services such as recycled water and treated stormwater, and that is absolutely important versus pressure on drinking water.
Can I ask, has government considered any restrictions on data centres consuming potable water for purpose of cooling their servers, like a moratorium on new applicants, for example?
This, I think, would feed into a consideration that the Minister for Planning might have,
Right.
But we have made it clear that we see recycled water and stormwater as the preferred source.
Okay, and is government continuing to develop policy in this area on data centre water use?
The government continues to develop a range of views and policies on a whole range of new areas that are being developed. Data centres is just one.
Recently, after a production of documents motion, government didn't release the water grid plan. It was a single document, and I understand the reasoning was due to insufficient time provided. Minister, can I get a confirmation? Does the plan exist?
The plan is being finalised, and I'm hoping to have that submitted fairly shortly.
Just checking another matter as well. Water is life. Is it true that 3 years on, none of the commitments on that roadmap have been achieved?
So I am absolutely committed to traditional owners' roles in the decision-making and access to water in Victoria. We announced in the last Victorian budget $41 million over the next 4 years, and that was made in response to the needs articulated by traditional owners across Victoria, demonstrates a commitment to increasing traditional owner participation.
I just wanted to check a few things on native forest logging, if that's okay. Can I just ask, does the government intend to ban importation of native forest timber from other states into Victoria?
We can't do that, sorry. There's constitutional restrictions on the restraint of trade, basically. It's so individual businesses such as sawmills, they're making the commercial decisions on sourcing log supply based on their specific circumstances. The Victorian government does not have jurisdiction to limit trade between states, as this is governed by the Commonwealth Constitution, Section 92, which stipulates that on the imposition of uniform duties of customs, trade, commerce and intercourse among the states, whether by means of internal carriage or ocean navigation, shall be absolutely free. So it's not within our ability.
Does the government have any intentions to ban logging of forests on private land?
So the private native forest resource is made up of many properties that are owned and managed by many thousands of landowners and or private land managers, and whilst the commercial native timber harvesting in state forests ended on the 1st of January 2024, harvesting on private land, including private native forests and plantations, is still permitted. Any harvesting on that private native forest must still be undertaken subject to relevant planning approvals and in accordance with the relevant regulatory framework, including the Code of Practice for Timber Production. Local government is actually responsible for administering the Code of Practice for Timber Production, issuing the permits and monitoring compliance of timber harvesting on private land, and it's the responsibility of the landowner to ensure that they have the relevant approvals and permissions prior to undertaking any planned works.
Minister, can I get your assessment? Looking forward in the agriculture sector, hemp, where does it fit in?
Oh, hemp's really important addition to the sector. Now, I know you'd all be familiar with the Upper House inquiry, and one of those recommendations coming out of the inquiry was to have standalone legislation to support the industry. Of this funding in this year's budget goes to that, but also the importance of the variety of uses that hemp has, and you would have gone to the the showcase at Parliament. Was it last year, I think, or earlier this
so,
year? I'm
from
not
memory,
sure.
yeah.
But it was, it really highlighted how diverse those uses are. Now, we want to remove what may be seen as barriers to entering, as well as making the process easier. So changing the language from cannabis to hemp is, and has been told to us it's very important that that happen to remove any perceived stigma, but also making the application process more streamlined to get in.
Minister, are you aware of any budget bids submitted on behalf of carer and family support organisation Different Journeys? They're an organisation which provides peer support to carers and people with autism.
Yes, I am. I meet with Different Journeys regularly, and I know that they've found great value from the funding that they've received. They did a program about carers in employment and worked with the State Library to further that work. They've briefed me on the great outcomes that they've had. They are also providing input into the carer strategy refresh. Yes, so we have regular meetings and they keep me informed as to the great work that they're doing.
Just speaking more broadly, Minister, in your assessment, what proportion of carer and volunteer organisations are submitting state budget bids in the lead up to a state budget?
I couldn't give you a percentage.
Doesn't have to be a percentage, just is it the majority? Is it many?
No.
No.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's a rather small number. A lot of the smaller organisations might indeed go to one of their peak bodies, be that Volunteering Victoria for volunteers or to Carers Victoria for carers, and they would, I would guess, would advocate to that peak body, who would then advocate on behalf of the entire sector.
Okay. Minister, in your assessment, is that approach sustainable for ongoing funding for sustainability of these organisations?
Funding for community organisations is always really difficult, and they could always do with more. That's the reality. I'm not inundated with funding requests through the budget process from individual organisations.
Would you advise them, though, that potentially they should write to you? Is that the approach you prefer?
I don't know that it would make a lot of difference. Everything gets considered when it's received, and we obviously have ongoing dialogue with both of the peak bodies. That's the point of them.
Multicultural swimming programs play a really vital role in promoting water safety and inclusion for culturally and linguistically diverse communities, particularly children and families who may not have had previous access to swimming education. Particularly from the statistics we know, multicultural communities experience greater risks of drowning. Can I ask what's being done about this and what's being done to support our communities?
Yeah, thank you. And you're absolutely right. There is a far too large a number of our multicultural communities are in our drowning figures, and that's not okay. So one thing that we have done is through the Vic Swim Summer Kids program, included those swim centres that were providing lessons to cold communities, directly targeting them. I know that there was one where I am out in Hume, so that those multicultural communities, it's tailored to suit their experience, their background, and encourage them to get involved, because what we know is cost can be a barrier for anyone. So having these programs close to home for a low cost, that's really important. So we also know that through the Get Active Kids voucher program, swimming is one of the top sports that vouchers are received for. And so it would be reasonable to presume, when you look at the areas that has the highest uptake, that there'd be many cold families represented there as well.
I declare this hearing adjourned.